Welcome in, everyone, to Diddy or Didn't He with me, Pugs Moran, here at Radio Misfits. This is it, the final night. We got the verdict. You know, we've done a show every single day or every single evening of the Sean Diddy Combs trial there occurring these past 7 weeks in that Manhattan federal courthouse, breaking down every dirty detail of Diddy's debauched days. Fun triple D alliteration there. And I got to tell you, folks, I am wore out. If you haven't noticed by the last couple of shows, you know, the jury deliberation shows, we've done them quick. They've been 15, 20-minute entries. Today, we're going to give you a full show. And to that end, it's verdict day. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Happened. We'll get you up to speed on it. We probably have heard that the verdict came out. We'll get into that. But I thought, what a more fitting way to do our final installment of Diddy or Didn't He than to bring back the crew. So we are going to be doing a full panel show today. First, let me bring in from WBAP Radio here in Dallas, Fort Worth, the afternoon superstar himself. He's James Parker. Look at him there.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight.
James, we're going to be joined by Headcrack, our third. We've done a couple of these, 3 or 4, I think, of these panel shows, and it's been me, you, and our buddy Headcrack from Dish Nation, the long-running nationally syndicated TV show. He is, unlike you and me, he is neck deep in the urban hip-hop sort of culture world. I'm a middle-aged white guy, and you were raised in East Texas, so he's kind of the expert. Would you agree?
I don't know if the hip-hop prowess helps a whole lot here, except for filling in some of the backstory.
Well, I think it does. I think every time I have a question, he's able to answer it. You know, there are just things that
some questions, but we don't have a legal degree.
The dude, well, this isn't about the nuts and bolts. This is more about the feels. This is more about how we feel about what we've seen in the court all this time. None of us are lawyers. As a matter of fact, I got a friend who's a lawyer. He's like, why don't you have me on? I'm like, because you'd be boring. Because I would rather be wrong, but entertaining in being wrong. This is about the cultural significance of this moment. This man, as a pilot of the zeitgeist these last 25 years, is on trial for his life. And quite frankly, Headcrack is the one who pointed out that Jane is actually Daphne Joy. And I'm telling you, you ain't contributed to that degree. That was probably the number one most important thing that I learned in this case. Because I knew who Cassie was. Cassie and Jane are, of course, the two, James, can we still call them victims?
No.
I don't think so either. I think it's been adjudicated. And I think that we're not just bad people for not believing the women. There is a judgment here. No, they're not victims. But Jane and Cassie were the two freak-off partners that were in the spotlight for this case. And we knew who Cassie was. Cassie was, a bit of a celebrity in her own right, although not a major one, but certainly someone bouncing around the scene. Jane, we had no idea. They kept her secret. We didn't know what she looked like. And oh my goodness. James, did you ever bother to take a look at old Jane, what Jane really looked like?
I did some research for the show purposes only, of course. I didn't enjoy it at all.
Did you?
But no, I went through and I felt like I've seen her before. Was she in like some reality show that I didn't watch, but I saw the promos for or something?
Dude, I don't know. Quite frankly, she's a dime a dozen hot club chick. By today's standard, she looks kind of like everybody's got some Kardashian version. You know what I mean? They're all like lesser Kardashians with the ethnically undetermined complexion and
ethnically ambiguous. Yeah.
Ethnically ambiguous, the big giant butt and the hair extensions and the long finger. They all look kind of the same. Here, let's take a look at Daphne Joy. This is who Crack was kind enough to is that her? Yeah, there she is. Crack was kind enough to put her on my radar. This was freak off contestant number 2. There she is. There you go, gentlemen.
Beautiful. It's a work of art. This is what we should be sculpting. You know how like you have the great sculptures of all time, the David and whatnot. We should be sculpting this. We should be leaving big bronze edifices of this shape.
I mean, just the descriptions of what he had this girl do. And then to see her like that. Oh, by the way, that's her kid. That's the kid that Diddy's been taking care of all this time, even though she's suing him for $10 million. He's been paying rent and taking care for this. This kid is also, by the way, 50 Cent's kid.
Yeah. He 50's baby mama.
I'm telling you, James, there were so many details that were revealed throughout the course of this trial that made me go, Diddy's a good dude. Diddy's taking care of another man's kid. That's Todd Rundgren taking care of Steven Tyler's daughter. I mean, she is something though, isn't she? Look at her.
Yeah.
She better than Cassie?
Maybe.
It's definitely similar to Cassie, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
a more buxom, a more banging Cassie, if you will. Bigger up top, bigger butt.
Why does it sound funny when you say that?
Because I don't know. Oh, there it is. There it is. There's Jane's other family. Jeez, this is all so weird.
She's beautiful.
She is beautiful. She is beautiful. Yeah. All right. There we go. Oh my God. All right. There you go. That's Jane. Jane Doe. Oh my God, I heard about some things that she did. All right, I just heard from Headcrack. Headcrack's going to join us in about 10 minutes or so. So let's just move on with the show. James, the big breaking news, of course, a verdict was delivered this morning. Didn't take long, which was interesting because if you remember what occurred last night around 5 o'clock Eastern time, New York time, the Judge Aram Subramanian received a note from the jury foreman stating that they had reached a decision on charges 2 through 5, but they were hopelessly deadlocked on the first charge being the Rico charge, the big life imprisonment sex trafficking charge. This was problematic. A lot of people were saying, are we on the verge of a mistrial because they can't? So what did this baller of a judge do? I've been man crushing on Aram Subramanian this entire case. He told the jury, he said, look, you guys go home, sleep on it, come back in tomorrow, and if you're still hopelessly deadlocked, we'll talk again. Well, guess what happened? They went home, they slept on it, they came in, they held a vote, and suddenly they were no longer hopelessly deadlocked. So another incredibly good shepherding experience from Judge Aram Subramanian, who just took this jury and said, nah, you're not giving up, you guys. I mean, James, how hopelessly deadlocked could they have been if after a night of sleep, it just completely changes?
I think it's just one guy. It was just one guy being a dick. And I don't know if he didn't want his moment of significance to end, but I really feel like it wasn't that they were split down the middle. It's probably just one a-hole, just some guy being a stick in the mud. You
wouldn't be wrong because the day before, the first note that the jury foreman sent to the judge on day one of deliberations, the first note said, we are experiencing a problem with juror number 25. We do not feel that he will be able to follow your honor's orders or instructions. I'm sorry, I don't want to do the wrong word. So apparently very early on, there was one juror who the foreman was like, oh God, this guy's going to wreck the whole thing. I'm thinking that guy, juror 25, was the one who was the holdout on the sex trafficking. I think they all wanted to dismiss the sex trafficking. And I think juror number 25 said very early on, I'm voting guilty on the sex trafficking because I saw what he did to her in the elevator. I saw that video and I don't care that that's not supposed to enter into it because the judge specifically said, ignore that video. It was only for context. And I believe juror number 25 said he couldn't do that.
We had this conversation before, but just explain it to me again, how he's not being charged for beating the snot out of Cassie, because that's clearly like assault and battery or whatever lawyers call it. Something legal happened there, and that wasn't part of the trial.
Well, the problem with that is that would be a state charge. That is not a federal charge. That would be the state of Los Angeles, the county of Los Angeles where it occurred. They would have to bring those charges. And unfortunately, that was in 2014. So the statute of limitations on that charge had run its course.
Long gone.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they used it. They used that video, which, you know, if you remember, the defense fought the use of the video, but they used the video for context.
I remember, I think in the first episode, we had this conversation, and I would like to revisit the thread of why are these federal charges? These aren't normally, why do the feds give a damn what Diddy's doing? Like, why isn't the state doing it? If there's prostitution and coercion and illegal drugs and all this, why the feds? Like, was he in the elite cabal, like the Jeffrey Epstein sex party circuit, and he pissed somebody off? Because even though he's getting off on charges, he just had to spend like a year in jail.
Well, here's what I think. Here's why I believe it's federal charges. There were no charges. No charges existed until Cassie, if you remember, the state of New York 2 years ago allowed a grace period for people who wanted to charge sexual abuse against somebody that was outside the statute of limitations. The state of New York, they set a deadline for like November 15th, 2023. If you want to get in under the wire in this whole Me Too thing where we're going after everybody, you have to get in by this time. And a whole slew of these civil cases against celebrities came in one day. I don't know if you remember, but everybody from like
I do.
Rock to Puff Daddy and all of these things came in one day because the state of New York had set this deadline to file these charges for things.
What year was that?
2023. This was 2 years ago. So on the day that happened, the charges were filed against Diddy, and he kind of got lost with all the other. I think Axl Rose got a charge filed out. All of these people got charges filed on him in the state of New York. The very next day, Diddy settled with Cassie for $20 million. That if you remember, became a story. It was like, oh my God, right. He settled right away. So
yeah, I forgot.
So Cassie got the $20 million the day after she filed this suit, and she was theoretically going to go away. Well, somebody inside the federal government got a little bug up their ass about this and decided to start a federal investigation into sex trafficking, based entirely on you know, the video and, you know, all of that stuff. That's why it became a federal charge, because Homeland Security initiated the first two raids. The Department of Justice in the Southern District of New York, they decided to bring the charges. The other thing, James, is it's a career-making case. And let me put this in your head. Maureen Comey is the lead prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. Maureen Comey has been walking around her entire career, the daughter of James Comey. She has been in his shadow forever. I believe this was an opportunity for her to put a big, high-profile entertainer in prison for the rest of his life, and then she would finally have something other. Because if you remember, she was also the lead prosecutor for Epstein, and she shit the bed on that. Okay, so she is looking for a big win, and I think she overcharged. I think that she thought the climate. I think she thought the climate of the time. Me too. Believe the women. You know, all of that. I think she thought that this was going to be a career-making win for her, and she didn't have the horses, and she has embarrassed herself. And as I tweeted earlier today, Trump's Department of Justice will fire the entire prosecution team in 3, 2, 1. I am waiting for that announcement.
Right. Okay, do you remember this from the first episode? Because I think I brought this up too. Who was the lead prosecutor that took down Martha Stewart?
I don't know.
James Comey.
Oh, really? Wow, when he was in the
didn't we connect that thread?
No.
I think that was on our show where we talked about
maybe
this.
I didn't know that, but yeah, he was the lead prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. So yeah,
because I didn't know that until the Martha Stewart documentary came out on Netflix, and man, whoever put that together is really good. But the storytelling was great. I didn't know James Comey was the prosecutor in that, and so I just found out last year. Remember when that? Did you see the Martha Stewart one?
No.
Oh, it's great. It's great. No, so she talks about being a model to Wall Street to media. But yeah, James Comey shows up in that big, dumb 6'8" or whatever. And he's retarded tall.
Yeah, he's Conan O'Brien big.
Yeah.
Howard Stern big.
And And so it's not just a name they have in common. She learned from dad. Find a big name, take him down, elevate your career, and it worked for him. A few years later, he's running the FBI.
Well, I don't think it's going to work for her. I think this is going to be a stain on her prosecutorial resume that I think a lot of people are not going to forget too soon. This was an egregious.
Look, she went for the Epstein, or no, she had Ghislaine. Wasn't that her bit?
Well, no, she was involved in the Epstein, but he killed himself. And then she was lead on Ghislaine.
She was both of them. Wow. So yes, she botched Jeffy. She did Jizzy, but we still didn't learn anything from it. And then she screwed up Diddy. So this lady has a weird record going on.
So let's talk about screwing it up because we don't want to bury the lead here. After the jury reconvened this morning, day 3,
the Dershowitz clip.
We haven't even said what the verdict was yet, James. Would you hold on? No, we're still just talking.
Fair point.
We're still on. They come back. They reconvene this morning. And again, after being hopelessly deadlocked 10 hours earlier, they come back almost immediately with, Judge, we have a decision. And let me tell you, I was freaking out as I saw this come across my phone on my alerts because I was not prepared for a decision this quick in the morning. James, they came back with guilty on here. I'll bring you the charges. Where is it? Here are the charges. Count 1, 5 charges total, James. Count 1, racketeering conspiracy, not guilty. This reading of this verdict caused Diddy in the courtroom to drop off his chair into his knees and begin praying. This was a big one.
That was the big one.
It's the life imprisonment charge and not guilty. Count 2, James. Sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. This is the one that pertains to Cassie. Okay. Did he sex traffic Cassie? Did he do it by force? And was she coerced and was fraud involved? Cassie, not guilty. Another big one, not guilty. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution. This is the flying of the escort that they hired to wherever, Miami, Las Vegas, or whatever, to engage in a freak off with Cassie. Guilty of that one. Guilty of hiring a prostitute to have sex with you and your girlfriend.
Okay, but hang on. Is that even a felony? I mean, do they even have federal misdemeanors?
It's a felony. It's the Mann Act. And we'll get into the Mann Act. The Mann Act is an incredibly troubling law that has been on the books since 1910. The way it's been used has been absolutely shocking. All right.
Well, hang on real quick. A Mann Act in 1909, they didn't care?
1909, they didn't. What do you mean?
The Mann Act was 1910. What were they doing in 1909?
Freaking out that there wasn't a Mann Act. That's what they were doing. The reason they enacted it in 2010 or 1910 is because of all the stuff that was happening in 1909.
Yeah, but I think most of us learned from the documentary Young Guns too that prostitution was rampant and popular, and like you can't really tell where the borders are. And so, like, if you have some, lovely lady that you're taking from one saloon to the next town over, and you happen to cross the state line, I guess they didn't care.
No, and so they also married and impregnated 12-year-olds, James. So you're
that was normal. 12-year-olds.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know if you've seen the documentary Young Guns too, but there was no 12-year-olds.
No, well, of course not, because it was shown to us through the Hollywood filter.
It was sanitized. Actually, there was a 14-year-old who got laid in that. Now that you mention it, and that's kind of creepy.
All right, let me give you the Mann Act. I'll explain to you what this is and why it's a serious and troubling act. The Mann Act, also known as the White Slave Trade Act, is a United States law.
Wait. That's the subtitle, the White Slave Trade Act?
Yeah, it's in
1910?
Yes.
I have questions. Yes. I have questions. This is going to be a long episode, bro.
Hold your questions until I finish explaining for the rest of the class.
Did you say slave?
Yes.
Okay, God damn it. Okay, go ahead.
Would you stop interrupting?
I didn't know slavery was going to come up, bro.
White slavery. Do you not know what white slavery is in the eyes of the law?
No. Is that
Well,
prostitution?
we're going to explain. Yes, it's prostitution and kidnapping of mostly underage children for the purposes of sex. Okay.
Ew.
All right, yeah, that's what's the definition, legal definition of white slavery. The Mann Act, also known as the White Slave Trafficking Act, is a United States federal law enacted in 1910. It prohibits the transportation of individuals across state lines or international borders for, quote, immoral purposes. It was primarily aimed at combating sex trafficking, initially targeting the transportation of women and girls for prostitution. The law's broad wording has been used in various cases, including those involving consensual sexual activity and even celebrities, as we're seeing here with Diddy. In addition to its stated purpose of preventing human trafficking, the law was used to prosecute unlawful premarital, extramarital, and interracial relationships.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an interracial relationship law. That is what it was designed for, and we'll get into it. That's
What
why
are you
I
reading
say,
the Wikipedia article on it or something?
I pulled this directly from, yes, Wikipedia, but
Okay.
also I'm very familiar with it because of my familiarity with Jack Johnson, who we will get into here in a second. It's the reason the law.
The
singer, Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
Most people would say you mean the first black heavyweight champion of the world, Jack Johnson, but no, you're going with a one-hit wonder from 15 years ago.
Yeah, the barefoot guy, everything's acoustic.
Yeah, the Kirkland brand John Mayer is how I would describe him.
That's a good. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
In addition to its stated purpose of preventing human trafficking, the law was used to prosecute unlawful premarital, extramarital, and interracial relationships. The penalties would be applied to men whether or not the women involved consented. And if she had consented, the woman could be considered an accessory to the offense.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This is a dumb law. What is going on?
Many attribute enactment of the law to the case of world champion boxer Jack Johnson. Johnson was known to be intimate with white women, some of whom he met at fighting venues after his fights. In 1912, Johnson was prosecuted and later convicted for transporting women across state lines for immoral purposes as a result of his relationship with a white prostitute. The month prior
well, that doesn't count if you have to pay for it.
Well, he didn't. He was the heavyweight champion. I'm sure she just happened to be a prostitute. I don't think he was paying for it. The month prior to this prosecution, Johnson had been charged with violating the Mann Act due to traveling. Due to traveling, he was traveling to a fight, I believe. Due to traveling with his white girlfriend, Lucille Cameron, who refused to cooperate with the prosecution and whom he married soon after. So that's the Mann Act. That's why it's troubling. It was the broad thing was, we're going to save children from being kidnapped. But the reality of it was created to stop black men from dating white women. And this is now in 2025, the thing that is left hanging over Diddy in a case that he should have been completely exonerated of. Do we have crack? Is that crack? We do. Look at this. We've got Crack. Head Crack joins us. Look at him.
Hola.
Where are you at? You driving or are you a passenger?
In the car.
Basically, in honor of today's verdict, I am driving in a car the same way Jack Johnson did when he violated the Mann Act back in the day when they got him on that.
Okay, are you familiar with that piece of ugly American history that I was just explaining to Jane, the origins of the Mann Act?
You know, I came in the middle of the movie, but I know like one of the most notable people prior to Diddy getting convicted of it was former, boxing champion Jack Johnson.
Yeah, and the law in 1910 was created because of situations like this. They didn't like interracial couples, and if you went on vacation, if a black man and a white woman were in love and they went on vacation, they drove from New York to Florida, they were probably getting arrested in North Carolina or wherever the hell it was, or whoever first saw them together. It was a way to enforce these laws. And I'm not saying that it's being used once again in a bullshit case to trump up charges against somebody who happens to be a very strong-willed and important black individual, but I am saying that. I mean, I am absolutely saying that. I don't know how else to look at this. Crack, I was telling James, I'm absolutely stunned at what happened after the verdict. But why don't you just go ahead? You give me a little rant on what you think about what happened. Once again, he was acquitted of the most serious charge 1, Rico racketeering. He has been acquitted on all the charges of force and coercion and all of that. He has been found guilty of transporting a prostitute, a male prostitute, I might add. I mean, these are male prostitutes he was hiring.
Ew.
He's been convicted of 2 counts of that, violations of the Mann Act. Crack, go ahead. Tell us what your impressions are of today's huge news.
All of it is wild that these were the charges that stuck, right? Because especially when you think about the component of the fact that there were situations where Cassie actually like picked out the people to be flown out for these freak offs, and she is not on the hook for any of this at all. It's all on Diddy, and that component of it is very wild. And then also too, I feel like this was never really about getting Diddy locked up for serious charges. I think this, I will always say that this was like a public humiliation ritual to bring him down a peg. And, because like, even with the things that they led with in the beginning was like, oh man, we found 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Like, all right, but what's the charge? You know what I mean? So this was all a snipe campaign. So the fact that both of these charges, could carry a 10-year sentence equaling to 20, I'm sure if he does any of it, it's going to run concurrently. He'll be out he'll be out before 2 iPhones come out. And, this could happen to anybody. The only other, and another thing that I have an issue with is the fact that like these are the 2 lesser charges. If me, you, or James got arrested for this same thing, right, we would have been allowed to go home and await our sentencing. The last I heard is like he's October 3rd, and he has to sit in jail until October 3rd. I have an issue with that as well. Granted, I am not. I am not heroizing anything he's done.
No, but that's huge, because if he's only guilty of these 2, and I don't want to say they're like trifling charges, but they're not the bigger, they're the lesser of the charges. He's already been in jail for what, a year now? And so I don't think he's going to go to jail after this. He'll already get credit for time served, and he should get credit for time served. And what the hell? What if he's not? It sounds like he was close to not being found guilty of anything, and he would have done a year in jail. We would have put an innocent man in jail for a year. Like, he may have already done too much time.
I think I disagree with you on that one, James. I don't think that it was a hard guilty on these on these hiring prostitutes. They admitted to it in court. That was throughout the course of this thing. I kept saying, well, they're admitting that it, I mean, but they were.
Yeah, but a year in jail is what he's already done for hiring prostitutes.
Each one of these hiring prostitutes. Again, we went through the charges. There's 2 of them. One pertains to Cassie in the escort that was flown to have a freak off with her, and the other one pertains to Jane in the escort that was flown to have a freak off with her. Those are the only 2 convictions, right? Okay.
Lame.
Well, it is lame, because you know what? This means that any dude who planned a bachelor party for his boy in Vegas and flew in a stripper or whatever is just as guilty as Sean Diddy Combs.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I think, is that what we're all thinking?
Yeah.
That's scary stuff.
Which is why,
I mean, even when it was breaking down the...
Which is why I always keep my whores and strippers locally. I never fly them in. I always do a little due diligence before I visit a town, and I find the best whores and I bring them in. Go ahead, Crack.
Always shop locally, never domestic import. Like anybody could be on the hook for these type of crimes just because of how easy it is to slip on that particular banana peel. And man, like, they paid a willing man who was willing to be the sexual escort. Like, they didn't have to force him. Like, if you would have told me 10 years ago I could have had sex with Cassie Ventura, okay,
we're losing him, but I think what he's about to say, and like paid. We got a bad signal there.
We're better off with that edited.
What Okay. Oh, really? No,
Yeah.
it was important. What I was saying is like, yo, like if 10 years
I know,
ago
but
you told me that I could
hold
have
on.
had, I pulled over, so like my car's not moving anymore. I'm sorry.
There you
Is
go.
it better
Okay, now
now?
go
Yeah,
ahead. Give it to
extra
us.
signal.
You
Yeah.
were a little choppy. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So what I was saying, 10 years ago, if you took for the flight and a Totino's party pizza, like you wouldn't have had to pay to
Of
do
course.
it. So I cannot believe that a willing adult man is not doing the prostitute who actually did the crime is not in jail. And the person
No.
who booked the person is in jail. The female who also is like, yes, him is also not in jail. And
Right.
this the person who paid for it, who's the most famous person that we know.
You know,
Hold on. That's a brilliant point, because Diddy had almost nothing to do with the acquisition of these sex workers other than providing a credit card and a bank account for Cassie to be able to pay him.
but if Cassie was like affirmatively part of the decision-making process, Crack is right. Why isn't she brought up on charges too?
Why aren't these prostitutes brought up on charges? Why isn't the actual prostitute who gets flown a co-defendant?
What a
in the
deal,
Manhattan
man.
charge?
Can you imagine someone came up to you? It's like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Tell you what, we're going to pay you a couple $1,000. We'll fly you to Vegas. You get to have sex with Cassie. We'll fly you home. What magical world are these people living in?
Crack did bring up something that just lit a fire inside of my head. You're absolutely right. Why isn't Cassie the one who's on trial? She actually had sex with the prostitute that she picked out, that she bought the plane ticket for, that Diddy paid for, but she did all of the arrangements. She had sex with him. She is the one who is breaking morality or whatever. This is insane, man.
And not only is she not incarcerated, guys, she also won Squid Game. She is now $30 million richer because of all of this.
Yeah. All right. So now let's go to the next big part of today. So we weren't.
Sorry.
We were.
I had some connection issues, I guess.
We were actually, James. No, you had something that you wanted before we move on to the bail hearing. We were forced to wait a good chunk of the day to find out what Judge Aram Subramanian was going to do about granting him bail, and we'll get into that in a second. But James, didn't you have a piece of audio or something, a Dershowitz that you wanted to play? Tell me about what this is.
Okay, so Dershowitz not only says Diddy was overcharged, but he thinks the two little measly charges that stuck are going to get thrown out. Can you add that to the mix, or do I need to do that?
Well, but they're not going to be thrown out. They were already adjudicated. So he's wrong.
No. He's saying like there's an appeal process or whatever.
Oh, okay. I thought this was something. All right, let's hear it. You got it?
Well, yeah, share it, and then I'll hit play.
Oh, I don't see it here, do I?
I don't have the power to share that.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Sorry about that. Boom.
Now you got it in?
Yep.
All right. Now I will hit play.
Well, what Diddy did clearly was immoral, and maybe some of the things he did were illegal under state law. But as usual, the federal government overcharged him. They charged him with being a racketeer under the Rico statute that was designed for the mafia. They charged him with trafficking people involuntarily, when the evidence suggests that most of these women voluntarily transactional sex. They wanted something in exchange for the sex. So they got him on essentially the Mann Act, which prohibits people from crossing state lines for immoral purposes. And I suspect that conviction may very well be reversed on appeal. And I think the trial judge thinks so too, because he's apparently going to release him on bail, which is not usually done if the judge thinks that the conviction will be affirmed on appeal.
So I thought that was huge.
There you go. Yeah. No, that's good. He's smart, and he's probably right. The appeals process will play its way out, but he was wrong when he said, and it looks like the judge is going to let him out on bail, because that leads us to our next big shocker of the day. Diddy was denied bail by Judge Aram Subramanian, and why is this a shock? I'll tell you, because just before they broke, there was about a 4-hour period this afternoon where everybody was gone, and Judge Aram Subramanian was wrapping his head around everything that just happened, and he was going to come back and he was going to give a decision on bail, right? Because Diddy had been denied bail when all these charges were hanging over him because, well, it sounds like he's a really bad guy. He can probably fly off to an exotic island on his private jet with his multiple passports. So they denied him bail. Now, as of this afternoon, those scary charges have been proven false. So he is now just a dude who bought a prostitute. You would think you're going to give bail to a guy you've had incarcerated for a year for the crime of getting 2 prostitutes. That's what it is. So that's why
Why didn't he get bail?
Well, I do have an answer for that. So, shocking the world, at about 4 o'clock this afternoon, Judge Subramanian gave his decision and he denied Diddy bail. This absolutely crushed Diddy. They said that he had an emotional breakdown there in court, slumping in his chair, he thought 100% he was going home. Here's the sick part of this, boys. Before Subramanian put the court in recess for him to think about this, he had an exchange in court with Diddy where he asked Diddy about, your freedom, if you get bail, he's like, blah, 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 you've been through a lot, all that. It was a very nice conversation that Subramanian was having with Diddy that led everyone to believe he was going to get bail. Subramanian even said to Diddy, I bet you're pretty excited about not having to go back to the detention facility, huh? And Diddy laughed and said, yeah, and then did the prayer thing and bowed his head. That's when the judge left the bench, and we didn't see him again until he came back and said, bail denied. I mean, wow is right. Now, you want to hear why he denied bail? And I think it's because I thought it was insane to deny bail, but then you hear his reason and you're kind of like, holy shit, this dude is a shark. It says here, Combs' upbeat demeanor darkened, his mouth dropped and his eyes widened after learning that he will remain in federal custody. The judge tentatively set sentencing for October 3rd, but scheduled a July 8th hearing where he will rule on whether to push the date up per the defense's request. In his ruling, Judge Subramanian cited his past bail denial rulings and also underscored Combs and his defense team's confessions of domestic violence throughout the trial. Here's a quote now from the judge. Even if the defendant was solely required to show that he is not a danger to the community, he could not meet that burden, the judge said. The defense conceded the defense's violent nature. You full-throatedly in your closing arguments, he's saying this to the defense, you full-throatedly in your closing arguments told the jury that there was violence here. The judge outlined the disturbing 2016 surveillance footage from the Intercontinental involving Combs. It says here, there was the London hotel incident that he brought up, which happened after the feds raided his home. Just before he was arrested, he had one last freak off and he beat the crap out of Jane. The defense admitted this. And that's the reason that Subramanian denied bail. He said, you guys have felt like you were getting away with something this whole trial, admitting to the violence, admitting to all those horrible things because you knew he wasn't being charged with that. Well, guess what? Here we are. And I'm not letting him out because you guys have been talking about, yeah, he's violent, but he's not a sex trafficker. I thought that was fascinating. James?
Well, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if the judge should have the latitude to say, well, you're a violent and bad guy, so I'm going to hold you in jail, even though you probably should get out. I mean, that's given a lot of power to some guy on a very subjective line of reasoning.
What are you talking about? That's the power we give judges all the time. This judge is saying you spent the entire defense.
This is what the bail system is for, though. The bail system is for innocent people not sitting in jail, trying to minimize.
It's not for violent people. Violent people are denied bail all the time. That's the primary reason bail is denied.
Look, I think he hit her. I know he's a violent person, but when you go through the due process, he hasn't been adjudicated as a violent person. They didn't charge him with these crimes of violence. And, you know, these
We
chicks
saw the
keep
video.
coming back. So they're just.
James, you're missing the point. The defense made it part of their defense that, yes, he's violent. And he
No, I get that. I get that.
Being charged here. He even beat up women after the feds had raided his house. He beat her up. What Judge Subramanian is trying to argue is that he is an incorrigibly violent man who, even while he was under the lights of the federal investigation, he was still knocking women around. That tells me that this guy will walk out of here probably thinking he escaped something, and he could be dangerous. I am not saying it's true. I am simply saying that was the judge's reasoning, and it blew back in the defense's face.
But that's kind of flimsy because look, he's going to walk in October. Then he's still going to be dangerous. So what are you just delaying it? The guy's innocent. I think he's a terrible human being, but he's innocent.
Yeah, no, he's innocent of the charges that they brought. The big charge. Go ahead, Crack. Jump in.
I mean, I think,
yeah.
Is it freezing again? The reception. I just switched my phone service today. The fact that everything that they could have charged him with, they didn't. I felt like the prosecution had no intention on trying to really get him put away for real things. Like, why didn't you make a domestic violence case against him, which you have video proof of? You could have had that thing open and shut. How come you didn't make a case
Wait. Hold on. I got to stop you here. Because I explained this to James before. The reason that there was no domestic violence charge is because that would be a state charge, and that happened in Los Angeles County, and it happened 12 years ago. It is long past the statute of limitations for domestic violence. So that's why that charge wasn't brought. But we know it happened. We saw the video.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, well, fair enough. And I do. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, I guess there are differences between state and federal charges. I just feel like, from the top of it all, the feds came in with really weak charges that wasn't going to stick. And the Mann Act charges were the slipperiest of the two things that they knew that they could make stick. And at the end of the day, all right, cool. So you get him locked up for a year or two. And I still will say that this has everything to do with him going up against that vodka company and nothing to do with people trying to stop somebody from breaking the law, who will do it again. Like, my man had a freak off the weekend he was arrested.
Yeah. Yeah, he knocked around Jane. She testified to being brutalized a week after the feds raided his homes. And that kind of action out of Diddy is why the judge denied bail.
Let me throw something out there. You know how we tolerate in the middle of hockey games, two guys will throw their gloves off and just start punching each other, and they don't get charged with assault and battery because why? It's just part of the process of playing a hockey game, and it's understood before you get on the ice that you might get punched, and you guys have both sort of consented to this level of violence, and it's therefore not criminal because you're both down with it. And I don't understand the freak offs. This is far beyond the level of kinky that I thought I was. But apparently if you come back for like the 19th time to a freak off and you get smacked around, I think you lose victimhood status. Like, I don't know where the point is.
Well, yeah,
but
that's the uncomfortable reality of this whole thing is that you don't like to, they're not victims. We believe women. You know what? I've never said I believe women. I say we listen to women. We listen to what they have to say, and we let them tell their story. And then we're allowed to go, that sounds like bullshit to me, right? But I think these charges in this case was brought in a climate of, we believe women. Jesus. What? I mean, think about how absurd.
What was this all about? The betterment of the Comey kid? What's her name?
Yes. So this was all about, I believe this was all about furthering the career of Maureen Comey. Yes, Comey brought these charges. She overcharged him. She thought it would be a slam dunk given the climate of the past 5 years and Harvey Weinstein and all these.
This was going to be her Martha Stewart, just like her dad taught her.
Well, it's going to be much bigger than that because Diddy's much bigger than Martha Stewart. But yes, absolutely. And she shit the bed. What a horrible, horrible idea. If she truly thinks that he's the kind of man that deserves to spend the rest of his life in prison, she is a horrible person. Because
And I also think she didn't use all the available cards that she had the ability to play. I mean, imagine if you're playing Uno and you have 7 cards and 4 of them are draw 4s. She could have had Young Miami testify, who Diddy was dating off and on for the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm sure she has a lot to say. You also have Albie Shore, who was in a coma and who has been pretty much whispering to anybody that'll listen, is like, yo, Diddy put me in this coma and he might have killed Kim too. You know, these are the people that I would have wanted to hear from, and we never had the opportunity to get those stories.
so here's why. Because you are right. There were a whole lot of people who, before this went to trial, were rumored to be bombshells that were going to testify. Half of the big names that were believed to have been prosecution witnesses here drops off the face of the earth. It wasn't supposed to just be Cassie and Jane. There was supposed to be Cassie, Jane, Gina, and Chloe, and another one who I can't think of, except 3 of them just disappeared on the eve of the trial. They completely
But we know where Young Miami at. We know where Albie Shore is at. These
Right,
people got something to say.
But you cannot be compelled to become a witness in a case like this. You have to willingly come forward. And if you want to disappear, obviously, all of these people that you just named, there's a possibility somebody got to them and said, here, you want $100,000 to go get lost when the prosecutor calls you? I mean, it's not that hard. This is what happens in cases.
Albie Shore has a radio show. I know where to find him.
I thought he was in a coma.
No, he got out of the coma, but he was in a coma about a summer or so ago, and he's been making the interview rounds and just and talking about his thing. Because like one of Diddy's kids is Albie Shore's kid.
Yeah, you were telling me
Shut
about
up.
it. It's all
Wait,
very...
I thought so he has a Fitty kid and an Albie Shore kid?
No, he's just paying for a Fitty kid. He's just paying.
Yeah, he's just paying for a Fitty kid, and he's like the legal dad guardian of Albie Shore's kid. I don't know how he won that child lottery, but I mean, great kid. I had the opportunity to work with him on a show one time. But it's just all of it's just weird, and I just can't believe that I never got a chance to go to a Diddy party.
Yeah,
not the ones that he's on trial for, but like the ones that end at 11.
Yeah, the white parties, the cool ones, the yacht parties.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have gone to one of those too. Yeah.
Here's an observation though. Like, how much does one adjective change an entire party? Because if you were saying, hey, I'm going to go to this party by this famous rapper, there's going to be some female prostitutes there, you might be like, oh, that sounds kind of sketchy, but I'm still going. But if it said, hey, we're going to go to this party from this famous rapper and there's going to be some male prostitutes there, you're like, that's kind of a hard pass. I might have to.
Again, James, you have the wrong idea. There is no big Diddy party where there were prostitutes and Diddy threw white parties as a part of his brand. They were the hottest party in Hollywood. Hundreds of people came, and it was the hardest guest list in the world to get on. Those are the party. We've seen these pictures, right? With J-Lo and all that. Those are white parties. Those happen out in the open. These freak-offs never had, James, look at me. These freak-offs never had more than 3 people in the fucking room, dude. Okay? So stop saying they were giant orgies. It was Cassie having sex with a prostitute and Diddy watching. That's it. That's the reality. I know the internet doesn't paint that picture, but that is the real thing. These Diddy white parties were just Hollywood parties and normal.
Yeah, I think our imagination makes these events crazier than it was. Because in one version of these freak offs, I pictured Ellen DeGeneres there, kind of Winnie the Poohing it. She's wearing a shirt but no pant, right, and just walking around, just doing what she's doing. I pictured Martha Stewart there offering people hors d'oeuvres for maki, things like that. And it was way tamer than I imagined, but also bizarre because with Diddy in the corner, doing monkeys, how they do in the zoo, wearing a fencing mask while that's happening is crazy.
I don't know about tame. You used the word. They weren't tame. They were crazy, degenerate sex outings, but they were only threesomes. Okay. If anyone has ever had a threesome, you have been engaged in something that had as many people as Diddy's freak-offs, okay?
No.
A threesome. It was Cassie or Jane and a prostitute with Diddy jerking in the corner. That's it. That's not the same thing as the Diddy white parties. is my point.
I'm not into the urine thing.
The urine thing. What do you mean? Yeah, well, he's in the fetish. Yeah, okay, but still, that's just a threesome. Okay, Ellen DeGeneres wasn't getting peed on. Justin Bieber wasn't in any of the freak offs, right? My God, and isn't that true? Do you remember? I mean, the internet made us think that this trial was going to have so much more. There has not even been the slightest suggestion that Diddy is homosexual in this trial. And yet,
no, but there was, because like if you remember the text messages, one of the ones he sent to the escorts is like, yo man, I'm still having flashbacks, drooling emoji, and eggplant emoji as well, back to back to back. Now, granted, this isn't like pure truth that Diddy's been diddled or was doing the diddling, but however, it does fall into the category of sus behavior. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that.
But we know that he is incredibly turned on by watching other men have sex with his girlfriend. Why wouldn't you think that's what he was referring to?
No, I think the rumor he has to answer for is the Meek Mill rumor and the bouncer or the security guy through the door who recorded the audio.
Why does he have to answer for that? There's no charges. That's not an official thing that anybody's accused him of. That is an internet rumor. That is a piece of tape that has gone viral. I mean, this is the nonsense.
But Pugs and James, may I ask, what is one rumor in this that you've heard that you wish was true? I'll start.
Oh, go ahead.
When the rumor was that Diddy, somebody spied on Diddy and saw him smashing Carl Winslow through the crack in the door.
No.
Yeah, that is a good one.
Was that a Dave Chappelle bit?
No, but it came from a real thing. Like that bit came from like a real story that.
So that was a Dave Chappelle bit.
What? No, but somebody did a podcast interview talking about that's what happened, and then Chappelle like worked it into like some of his material, because like rumors has been going around about Carl Winslow for like a long time, and so it wasn't too far, like it wasn't far from the stretch of the imagination, and it was like, well, damn, I mean, like, how big of a Family Matters fan were you?
It's a fantasy if you were. Yeah.
It's a rare condition in this day and age.
Not that big, actually.
I think my favorite one was the story that had Diddy and a bunch of other unnamed high-level hip-hop stars and impresarios passing Justin Bieber around as a sex toy. That was the one that I thought.
You know what? That's exactly where I'm going too, because I wanted there to be some sort of expose on, when Diddy has these younger people in his orbit, in names that we know. Justin Bieber's an obvious one.
Yeah, mentor.
I was hoping there would be some sort of like exposition of what happened with these guys. And
what happened? He blew them up into superstars. You want there to see, this is the thing. That's a mentorship. This has happened. I mean, do we look the same way at Berry Gordy and Michael Jackson? Do you say, why is that middle-aged man hanging out with that 12-year-old talented kid? I mean, these are all rumors is what I'm saying. And it's fun to think the worst, but this is how Hollywood and show business works. You find the next generation and you mentor them and you get a piece of their career, right? Isn't that how Usher came to us?
Because look, did Diddy touch Justin Bieber?
Have no idea. See, this is the thing. I have no idea. Your answer is based on what you want to be true. That's
no,
it.
that ruins
I don't
the story.
think he did, but I could totally see a situation where he exposed him to too much too soon when you wasn't ready, man. Like sometimes, man, like the excess in the hands of an adolescent could be too extreme. I know, like, for years there's always been these quiet mumblings about how Diddy exposed Usher to way too much, too early, too soon when he wasn't ready to handle it. Yeah. And he, and it took him a while to kind of like, get his balance, right from it again. And, it some people would be like, well, if that was me, I would have enjoyed it and I wouldn't have said nothing. Same people that be like, man, if I was having sex with my teacher, I wouldn't have told nobody. But you don't know how it's going to affect you until you're affected by it.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right. Well, you know what, guys? I think that's it. This has been, boy, it would have been so much greater if there were cameras in the courtroom, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it have been so much better?
No, we got those great chalk sketches on a grocery bag. That's just as good.
Yeah, your grocery bag theory. All right, Head Crack, where can people follow you if they want to check out your other things?
Oh,
You've got
man.
a bunch of stuff.
Well, I'm so easy to track down. You can find me 5 days a week on Dish Nation. Also, you can check me out on Side Dish, which is streaming on Fox Soul. If you like music, I'm on Spotify, HEADKRACK, and
There
that's
you
that
go.
on
James
that.
Parker, how can people enjoy your hot takes and waxing poetic?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking right now, if you're alive and watching this in somewhat contemporary times, I'm on WBAP weekdays from 2 to 5 in the afternoon. But if you're watching this like 50 or maybe 100, maybe even like 1,000 years in the future, my name's James Parker, and if you look up my other stuff, it should be probably equally as offensive as this.
Yeah. If you're watching this 50 years in the future, I'm Pugs Moran, and I didn't do what they said I did. Just for the record. Just
It was one goat. One
goat.
goat. Yeah.
And I didn't hurt it. That goat didn't. Thank you, Head Crack and James Parker. I appreciate you hanging out with me here. There he goes, the great Head Crack and the great James Parker. I am Pugs Moran. Like, follow, subscribe. I appreciate all of you hanging out with me on this crazy ride. 7 weeks. James, anything in closing? I didn't want to just cut you up, but we're wrapping here.
Be good. If you can't be good, be safe. If you can't be safe, name it after me.
That's very nice. He's James Parker. I'm Pugs Moran. This has been Diddy or Didn't He exclusively here on Radio Misfits, radiomisfits.com.